Good morning. My name's Eric Bader from Small Cap Consumer Research. It's a pleasure to be here for the Share Series. We are here with Jim DeVries, the CEO of ADT. Just a few quick housekeeping things. First of all, even though I can't throw it up here, I do need to do the disclaimer. Before we start, I do need to mention that today's remarks may include forward-looking statements, safe harbor provisions. Additional information regarding non-GAAP financial measures and other risk factors can be found on the ADT Investors website. Also, because we're going to be a little tight for time, if you have any further questions, please contact Elizabeth Landers over here. She is the IR person for ADT. So with that, Jim, I think probably more than 3 people use your product in this group. I know we're one of them. Could you kind of explain where ADT is in their evolution? It's been 150 years since you started, not since you started, but since the business started. Yeah, how do you look at 150 years business right now and where it's going?
Yeah. So first, thanks for managing the Q&A. Thanks everybody for joining today, and for the event planners for putting it on. It's a pleasure to be here. We don't get a great number of opportunities to talk directly to retail investors like this, so this is a great forum for us, and appreciate the time. So ADT, 150-year-old company. We are in the residential and small business space. If there's been any evolution for our organization over the last few years, it's morphing from a security-centric company to a smart home company. There's been a renaissance in video and video analytics and interest in cameras and video doorbells, and the number of devices that we install in a system is much more smart home device focused. We haven't lost our history in security. We're still about protection, but the evolution has been increasingly towards smart home, and about 6.4 million customers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the world has changed. You obviously have always been involved in the home. Getting a home now has gotten harder. People are staying in their homes more. How does the economic shifts affect you? And how should we be thinking about your ability to withstand the ups and downs in an economy here?
We've talked, I've been with the organization, it'll be 8 years in May, and we've always talked about being a recession resilient company. And now I think regardless of your definition of recession, we're in a troubled time, a challenging economy, and we're holding up well. We have about 85% of our business is recurring revenue. We're a subscription business that's high margin, resilient, sticky business. Our customer retention has never been higher than it is today. And so we're weathering this economy pretty well. There's at a very high level, relocations, when customers move, that's the biggest cause for attrition for us. Sometimes they're moving into retirement homes, sometimes out of the country, but whenever a customer moves, that's a chance to lose that customer. And when relocation is down, that provides a terrific tailwind for our company to retain customers. It's a headwind when it comes to adding customers because you have fewer bites at the apple, fewer people are moving. But net in an economy where there's less relocation, that's a good guy for ADT.
And Jim, you've talked about the technology changes here. There have alarms been around since basically the beginning of time, but if you look at the last 10 years, the amount of technology change in this segment has just erupted. How are you impacted by that? How are you offering your own proprietary systems competing against some of these other players here?
Yeah, so no doubt, Eric, the changes from a technology perspective are most significant in video analytics. That is using the camera as a virtual assistant of sorts in your home. And we partner very closely with Google. Google, by the way, owns 6% of our company. They're an equity holder. I should mention State Farm owns about 15% of our company, and we're still 54% owned by Apollo, and the rest is public float. But the partnership with Google is a key aspect of how we're delivering contemporary, modern technology to make the experience better for our customers. I'll give you a couple of examples of how that's emerging. Cameras, the analytics behind the consumption of video are getting more and more sophisticated, and the experiences that a customer can curate using that video, using that sensor data, is getting more and more valuable. So for example, you can be notified when your child comes home from school. We've been able to do that for a long time, but now through facial recognition, we can notify you if your child is home with somebody who perhaps has never been in the house before. So they're home at 3 o'clock when they should be, but they're not necessarily there with their best friend, because the video analytics picks up that this is somebody who has not been here before. I can get notified if my child is playing by the pool. I can get notified if my child is in the pool. I can build all of these, sort of curate these notifications to pay more attention, to be able to observe what's occurring in the house in ways that I never could before, and in a more sophisticated, sort of alert, event-based way. I can set up experiences where if I leave the house, forget to close the garage door, I know via precision GPS that I'm a mile away or 2 miles away. I can set up my system to close the garage door automatically for me, because clearly I didn't intend to do that. So the experiences are getting more and more integrated into the life of the customer and making the home more convenient, what Google calls a more helpful home.
Let's talk a little about State Farm. You mentioned that this is a little bit different. Many people go do-it-yourself, or they buy these systems to lower their insurance rates because they'll get a discount here. But this State Farm is a little bit of a twist on that, is that State Farm wants you to do this for them so they can get a better piece. Could you talk a little bit about how that's doing and kind of where it is in terms of rollout?
Yeah, you bet. So I'd mentioned State Farm is a key partner for us, a 15% equity holder in our company. And the reason for the partnership, there's a couple central reasons for the partnership. The first is State Farm, the thesis in the partnership is that State Farm will be able to use our devices to mitigate large claims. State Farm loses billions of dollars in fire claims a year. They lose billions of dollars a year in water damages. And give or take, call it $1 billion from intrusion and burglary. And so if we install systems in their customers' homes, we can be proactive. Insurance becomes proactive in avoiding the loss, and reactive if a loss does occur, you'll be reimbursed your insurance proceeds. But the systems that we're installing in the homes of State Farm customers are systems that are not necessarily the smart home that I've been talking about, that are cameras and video doorbells, et cetera. Instead, it's water detection, smoke detection, intrusion, all with an eye towards mitigating claims loss. And then the next generation of opportunity for State Farm is to use our devices to provide insights into what's occurring in the home. Some of you very likely have a device in your car that gives insight to your insurer on driving behavior. You get it if you drive well, you get a discount. I'm judging Eric, you might have a little higher insurance bill from the reaction.
That device is evil.
But there's in the home, there's not a great deal of data that any insurer can use to build into their pricing algorithm to better price risk. And there's a opportunity in the future with customer opt-in, explicit customer opt-in, to potentially use data that sensors gather in the home to better price risk. So it's an exciting opportunity for us working with State Farm. They're an amazing partner, largest P&C company in the country, incredibly customer centric, and we're off to a pretty exciting start with them.
So actually, just give us some statistics here. When did that start? How many states can you go in right now? And I'm going to ask some of the obvious question. Is this an opportunity to upsell this? Because to your point, you mentioned these are not things that normally, if I'm sitting there wiring my home, I would want these things or even pay for these things.
Yeah, we're in the deal for a little over a year. We're in 10 states, in earnest in 5. We'll double that or so over the course of the next year. The number of states that we'll be in by the end of 24 represents 65% of the 14 million homes that State Farm insures. And to your question on upselling, that's the intent. So part of the package, if you will, is that claims mitigation package I talked about: water detection, smoke detection, intrusion. When our technician goes to the home to install those devices, they're engaged with the customer, talking about what the customer might be interested in. Video doorbells, we have a take rate on video doorbells of about 50%. On average, we're selling a little over 2 cameras, indoor and outdoor cameras per home. So when the purchase is made, it's about avoiding losses, avoiding claims in my house. When the technician leaves, about 2/3 of the time they've upsold cameras, thermostats, et cetera.
It's an interesting point. You guys have a very personal relationship with your customers. Now, you talked about the stickiness on that. How long does a customer actually, in general, if they don't move, keep the product? And what's the ability during their life to expand them? You talked about Google with the cameras. There are probably a lot of customers that 4 or 5 years ago, or before that, had your system, and those things didn't even exist. How do you get them to move forward with
Yeah, significant opportunity for us to upgrade customers. And it's a active part of our playbook, Eric. The average customer is a little over 8 years with ADT. Yeah.
Oh, that's a long time.
It's a long time. Wish it was 9.
So you mentioned that Apollo is a majority shareholder. They took you private and then they went public. And obviously with those kind of things, they probably put some debt on your balance sheet, if I had to guess. Where are you in that space? And I know that you recently sold, I'm going to tell you, so you recently sold your commercial division for over $1 billion plus, and you use that to pay down the debt. So where was the debt at kind of its peak? Where is it now? And kind of where do you want it to go? And what do you think is the best area where it's healthy for the business?
You bet. Yeah. So we IPO'd in January of 2018 here at the exchange. Exciting day. But we IPO'd, as you say, with good amount of debt. And a few months ago, we had a transaction of our commercial business. This business was about 5% of our EBITDA, about $130 million of EBITDA. And we were trading at the time right around a multiple of 6, so 6 times EBITDA. And we were able to sell the commercial business for about a little over 11 times EBITDA. So there was a very significant multiple arbitrage because we sold that piece of our business for a much higher multiple. So that arbitrage created, give or take, $600-700 million of value. And we shielded our entire gain via NOLs. And so we had net after tax, after one-time expense proceeds of $1.5 billion. And we used all of that to pay down debt. And we went from a leverage ratio of about 11.7, 11.8 to a leverage ratio of around, we had a leverage ratio of 3.7, 3.8. And after that transaction, we came down to 11.2 or 3.2, 3.3. And we have designs on getting to 3 or below. but in much better shape today, especially in this environment, in much better shape from an interest cost perspective than we otherwise would have been. I'll mention one more thing here on the debt side, and that is via hedge. Very nearly 100% of our debt is fixed, and so we're not exposed quite as badly to other companies with our level of leverage.
Okay. If you sit back and think about this business, it obviously generates tremendous free cash flow. Subscribers for 8 years, they don't need a lot of help at times. You've now done a significant deal to reduce the debt, and there's a potential to reduce the debt further. Besides reducing the debt, what do you want to use the incremental capital now for?
Yeah, with the debt down in the neighborhood of a leverage level of 3, we can use our cash, our free cash flow, much more returns-based capital allocation. When your leverage is 3.7, 3.8, you're beholden to that debt. You know, every dollar of true free cash needs to go towards paying down debt. And now that we're in the zone of 3, maybe a little bit less than that in a few months, we can look at other options. And as you might expect, Eric, we're looking at it all: dividend policy, stock buyback, potential M&A in our space, in our smart home space, small tuck-in acquisitions. Debt reduction will still be a priority for us, but when we look across the spectrum of options, it's much more returns-based capital allocation than it was before we lowered our debt.
Right. And just some clarification. You haven't paid a dividend before or bought back stock, so this would be a new incremental.
Yeah, we have a dividend now. So we have a small dividend now. The yield's in the zone of 2%, but we have not bought back stock.
Okay. I know you haven't provided guidance for 2024. Obviously, after I gave this disclaimer at the beginning, we're not going to do that. But what do you look at next year, and given that you've been somewhat, in terms of kind of liberated from the yoke of the debt a little bit, and you have these pieces rolling out, what most excites you about the things we've talked about in 2024 in terms of driving potential growth, any further free cash flow? And have you given a guide on 2023 free cash flow?
We have, yeah. So the guide on 2023 is between $600 and $650 million of adjusted free cash flow. We haven't talked with specificity about 24 yet. We have a long-term target, at least when it was set, it was long-term. Now it's intermediate term of $1 billion of free cash flow in 2025. And there are a number of things that we're looking at to get there. Probably the most significant part of the bridge is we are in the solar space. It's been a really tough year for us in solar. It's been a tough year for most everybody in the solar space. And tourniqueting the losses in solar provide for the most meaningful bridge between that 650 level and $1 billion. So job one is to clean up solar, and then in our core business, the professional install business continues to grow at a macro level. Smart home adoption has plenty of tailwind. We're excited to continue to expand the partnership with State Farm. That's a massive new TAM for us and a new application for our products. I mentioned earlier, 14 million homes. So it's an exciting piece. And then on the cost side, there are a number of initiatives that we're undertaking. Everything from dialing up productivity improvements. We're doing some really interesting things early stage on AI that I think can help us on the margin front.
Right. So you're kind of a 150-year-old fledgling growth story here.
Indeed, we are.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Again, if there's any questions, Elizabeth Landers is in the back, or you can contact her directly at ADT. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.